The darkness between stars held no secrets from the Galactic Dominion fleet as 3,000 warships moved through space like hungry wolves. Admiral Krez felt the familiar vibration of the flagship's engines beneath his feet while studying the holographic display that showed their target system. The third planet from a yellow star looked peaceful and blue, exactly as the old reports described it. These humans were supposed to be nothing more than clever animals who had recently learned to make fire burn in metal containers. The intelligence files spoke of creatures who fought with simple projectile weapons and moved around their world in wheeled machines that consumed fossil fuels. Their most advanced flying machines could barely reach the edge of their own atmosphere. Before falling back down to the surface like stones, Krez allowed himself a small smile as he thought about how easy this conquest would be. The Dominion had been expanding across the galaxy for over 2,000 years, bringing order and purpose to countless primitive worlds. This territory would be no different from the hundreds of other backwater planets they had absorbed into their empire. The delay in conquering this particular world had been purely administrative. When the scout ships first cataloged the human species 40 years ago, there had been more important battles to fight and richer worlds to claim. The humans were so primitive that they posed no threat and offered little immediate value beyond basic manual labor and their planet's raw materials. Now everything had changed. The Dominion's rapid expansion had stretched their resources thin across too many star systems. They needed new sources of metals, energy, and workers to maintain their empire's growth. The High Command had finally decided that even a primitive world like Terra 3 was worth the effort to subjugate. 3,000 ships seemed like massive overkill for such a simple operation. A single Dominion destroyer possessed enough firepower to level every major city on the human planet within hours. The massive fleet had been assembled not because the humans posed any real threat, but because the High Command wanted to send a message to other primitive species who might be watching from nearby systems. The tactical computers had already calculated the most efficient approach for planetary subjugation. First, they would eliminate any orbital installations the humans might have managed to build in the decades since the last scout report. Then a demonstration bombardment would destroy one of their major population centers to encourage immediate surrender. If the humans proved stubborn, systematic destruction of their infrastructure would continue until they accepted Dominion rule. Krez expected the entire operation to be completed within a single day. The humans would surrender quickly once they realized the futility of resistance against superior technology. Those who proved useful would be transported to labor colonies throughout Dominion space. The planet itself would be strip-mined for its resources before being abandoned or converted into a military outpost. The Admiral turned his attention to the fleet's formation as they prepared to drop out of hyperspace at the edge of the human solar system. His ships were arranged in a classic intimidation pattern designed to maximize their psychological impact on any defenders. The massive dreadnoughts formed the center of the formation, while smaller cruisers and destroyers spread out in precise geometric patterns that demonstrated Dominion military discipline. When the order came to decelerate from hyperspace, Krez felt the familiar moment of disorientation as reality reasserted itself around the fleet. The stars snapped back into their proper positions and the yellow sun of the Terra 3 system blazed before them at a comfortable distance. Then the warning alarms began to sound. The sensor officer's voice carried a note of confusion that Krez had never heard before. Admiral, we're detecting energy signatures throughout the system that don't match our intelligence reports. Krez moved to the sensor station and studied the readings with growing bewilderment. The displays showed active installations scattered throughout the human solar system, from the asteroid belt all the way out to the gas giant planets. These weren't the crude chemical rockets and primitive satellites that their scouts had reported 40 years ago. Run a full diagnostic on all sensor arrays, Krez ordered. These readings must be caused by equipment malfunction. But the diagnostics came back clean. The sensors were working perfectly, which meant the energy signatures were real. Somehow, In the span of just 4 decades, the humans had developed technology that could maintain installations throughout their entire solar system. The communications officer looked up from his station with an expression of disbelief. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the third planet. They're using standard galactic frequencies and protocols. That's impossible, Krez replied immediately. The humans don't possess faster-than-light communication technology. Sir, the transmission is definitely coming from Terra 3. They're requesting that we identify ourselves and state our intentions in this system. Krez stared at the tactical display as dozens of new contacts began appearing on the screen. Small ships were launching from various points throughout the system, moving toward the Dominion fleet with impossible speed and precision. These weren't the lumbering chemical rockets described in their intelligence files. The Admiral felt the first stirring of genuine concern as he realized that something fundamental had changed in this system since their last scout visit. The humans were no longer the primitive species their databases described. Somehow, they had developed technology that allowed them to operate throughout their solar system and communicate across interstellar distances. Open a channel to the human transmission, Krez ordered. If these creatures had somehow acquired advanced technology, he needed to understand how before beginning the conquest operation. The main display screen activated to show a human face looking back at him. The creature appeared unremarkable by galactic standards, with brown hair and pale skin, wearing what appeared to be a military uniform of some kind. "This is Commander Rivera of the Earth Defense Force," the human said in perfect galactic standard language. "You have entered our system without permission and with obvious hostile intent. You have exactly 1 hour to withdraw your fleet beyond the outer planets, or we will consider your presence an act of war." Krez almost laughed at the audacity of the demand. 3,000 Dominion warships faced perhaps a dozen primitive human vessels, yet this creature was issuing ultimatums as if the positions were reversed. "I am Admiral Krez of the Galactic Dominion," he replied. "Your species has been selected for integration into our empire. Surrender immediately and your casualties will be minimized." The human's expression didn't change. "Admiral, I don't think you understand your situation. This system is under the protection of the Earth Defense Force. Your ships are already targeted by our defensive installations. Withdraw now or face the consequences." Krez terminated the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. "Begin standard conquest protocols." These humans seem to have acquired some basic technology, but they're still vastly outnumbered. Prepare for orbital bombardment of their major population centers. But as the Dominion fleet moved into attack formation, Admiral Krez couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong about this entire situation. Deep beneath the Colorado mountains, Commander Rivera ended the transmission with the alien admiral and immediately activated every defense system that humanity had spent 40 years building in secret. The war room filled with the soft hum of quantum computers processing millions of tactical calculations per second, while holographic displays showed the positions of every ship in both fleets. Rivera had been 12 years old when the first alien scout ship was detected entering their solar system 4 decades ago. That single event had changed everything for humanity. The crude probe had remained in the system for only a few hours, scanning their planet and civilizations before disappearing back into deep space. But those few hours had been enough to convince world leaders that contact with a spacefaring alien species was inevitable. The response had been swift and unanimous. Every nation on Earth had contributed resources to a massive secret project designed to ensure that when the aliens returned, humanity would be ready. The public knew nothing about the visitor or the preparations that followed. As far as most humans were concerned, they were still alone in the universe, but the military and scientific communities had worked together to achieve technological advances that would have taken centuries under normal circumstances. The alien Scout's energy signature had provided crucial data about faster-than-light travel, artificial gravity, and advanced material science. Human scientists had reverse-engineered these concepts, had improved upon them with typical human ingenuity, The asteroid belt had been quietly converted into a massive manufacturing complex over the past 20 years. Automated mining systems extracted raw materials, while fusion-powered factories built the components for humanity's secret defense network. The gas giant planets now hosted orbital installations capable of generating gravitational fields strong enough to tear apart enemy ships. Rivera watched the tactical display as the alien fleet began moving into what their databases identified as a standard Dominion attack formation. The enemy ships were impressive by most galactic standards, but humanity had spent decades studying captured alien technology and developing countermeasures for every weapon system in the Dominion arsenal. "Status report," Rivera ordered. "All orbital platforms are online and ready," reported the tactical officer. "The asteroid belt installations are fully charged. Deep space monitoring confirms 3,000 enemy vessels, all matching Dominion. Military specifications. What about our mobile assets? 72 defense ships have launched from various staging points. They'll reach optimal firing positions in 18 minutes. The lunar installations are tracking all enemy vessels and have targeting solutions ready." Rivera nodded. The numbers looked terrible on paper. 72 human ships against 3,000 alien warships seemed like hopeless odds. But numbers could be deceiving when technology levels were vastly different. The human defense ships were marvels of engineering that incorporated technologies the Dominion had never encountered. Their hulls were constructed from metamaterials that could absorb and redirect energy attacks. Their engines manipulated spacetime itself to achieve accelerations that would have been impossible with conventional propulsion systems. Most importantly, the human ships were controlled by artificial intelligence systems that could process tactical information and respond to threats thousands of times faster than biological crews. Each human vessel was effectively a thinking machine capable of independent operation while coordinating perfectly with all other units in the defense network. "Incoming transmission from the flagship," the communications officer announced. Rivera accepted the connection and found himself looking at Admiral Krez again. The alien commander appeared confident despite the warnings he had received. "Commander Rivera, your hour has expired. We are beginning conquest operations immediately. Order your ships to stand down and prepare for planetary occupation." "Admiral, you still don't understand what you're facing," Rivera replied calmly. "Our defensive systems are unlike anything in your experience. This is your final warning to withdraw." Krez's expression showed amusement. "Commander, we have analyzed your ship capabilities. Your vessels are impressive for a primitive species, but they are still heavily outnumbered. Surrender now and your people will be treated fairly under Dominion rule." Rivera glanced at his tactical display. The alien fleet was moving into bombardment range of Earth's outer defensive perimeter. In a few minutes, they would be close enough to begin attacking the planet directly. "Admiral, since you insist on learning the hard way, let me show you what human engineering can accomplish." Rivera terminated the connection and turned to his tactical officer. "Activate the outer perimeter. Give them a demonstration they won't forget." The first sign that something was wrong from the Dominion perspective came when several of their scout ships simply vanished from sensors. The vessels hadn't been destroyed by visible weapons fire. They had simply stopped existing, as if space itself had rejected their presence. Admiral Krez stared at his tactical display in confusion as more ships began disappearing from his fleet's formation. "What's happening to our vessels?" "Unknown, sir. The ships aren't being destroyed. They're just ... gone. No wreckage, no energy signatures, nothing." Then the asteroid belt began to move. What the Dominion sensors had identified as ordinary space rocks revealed themselves to be massive weapon platforms that had been disguised as natural objects. Structures the size of small moons uncloaked themselves throughout the system, their surfaces bristling with weapons that operated on principles the aliens couldn't identify. The gas giant's rings shifted position, exposing railguns that stretched across thousands of kilometers. The planet's moons opened like flowers to reveal installations that had been hidden beneath artificial surfaces. Even the sun itself seemed to pulse with artificial energy as solar collection. Arrays came online to power humanity's defensive network. Sir, we're detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system, the sensor officer reported. These readings are off our measurement scales. Krez finally understood what Commander Rivera had been trying to tell him. The humans hadn't just developed spaceflight capability in the 40 years since the last scout visit. They had turned their entire solar system into a fortress designed specifically to repel invasion. The Dominion fleet found itself surrounded by weapons that shouldn't have existed and facing technology that operated beyond their understanding of physics. For the first time in his career, Admiral Krez began to suspect that his 3,000 ships might not be enough. All vessels, prepare for immediate withdrawal, he ordered, but it was already too late. The humans had been waiting 40 years for this moment, and they weren't about to let the Dominion fleet leave without delivering a message that would echo throughout the galaxy. The demonstration was about to begin. The first human ship to approach the Dominion fleet moved with such casual confidence that Admiral Krez initially assumed it was piloted by either a madman or someone who didn't understand the situation. The small vessel glided between the massive alien warships like a child walking through a forest of giants, completely ignoring the hundreds of weapons trained on its hull. Captain Bradley sat alone in the cockpit of his interceptor, reviewing the psychological profile that human intelligence had compiled on Admiral Krez over the past few hours. The alien commander was a career military officer who had risen through the ranks by following established protocols and overwhelming primitive species with superior numbers. He was competent but unimaginative, exactly the type of opponent that human strategists had prepared for. The interceptor's hull was constructed from materials that didn't exist in Dominion databases. Its engines manipulated gravitational fields to achieve impossible maneuvers while its computer systems processed information at speeds that made Dominion artificial intelligence look primitive. But none of these advantages would matter if Bradley couldn't convince the alien admiral to listen to reason. "This is Captain Bradley of the Earth Defense Force requesting permission to come aboard your flagship." He transmitted on standard diplomatic frequencies. Admiral Krez studied the small human vessel on his tactical display with growing confusion. The ship showed no weapon signatures and carried only a single occupant. Either the humans were incredibly naive about military protocol, or they were demonstrating confidence that bordered on insanity. "Captain Bradley, you are approaching a hostile fleet with obvious intent to board our flagship. Are you surrendering on behalf of your species?" "Not exactly, Admiral. I'm here to discuss terms for your withdrawal from this system." I believe a face-to-face conversation would be more productive than exchanging threats over long-range communications. Krez almost laughed at the audacity of the request. The human captain was surrounded by 3,000 alien warships, yet he was talking about terms for withdrawal as if the positions were reversed. The Admiral's tactical officers were already calculating firing solutions to destroy the approaching vessel. "Permission granted, Captain Bradley. But I should warn you that this meeting will be brief. My fleet has a schedule to maintain." The human ship docked with the flagship shuttle bay with mechanical precision that surprised the alien crew. Most primitive species had difficulty matching their crude vessels with Dominion docking systems, but Bradley's interceptor sealed against the airlock as if it had been designed specifically for compatibility with alien technology. Bradley emerged from his ship wearing a simple blue uniform with no visible weapons or protective equipment. He appeared completely relaxed despite being surrounded by heavily armed aliens who could have killed him instantly. The escort guards led him through the ship's corridors toward the bridge, while he examined the alien technology with obvious interest. "Impressive engineering," Bradley commented to one of his escorts. "Though I notice you're still using plasma conduits for power distribution. That must create significant inefficiencies in your energy systems." The alien guard didn't respond, but Krez received the report over his communicator with growing unease. How could a primitive human identify advanced engineering flaws at a glance? The plasma conduit issue had been a known problem with this class of ship for decades. When Bradley reached the bridge, He took a moment to study the alien crew and their equipment before approaching. Admiral Krez, the human, seemed completely unimpressed by the massive display screens showing the positions of 3,000 warships or the exotic weapons that could have reduced his home planet to rubble. Admiral Krez, thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I'm here to inform you that you have exactly 10 minutes to begin withdrawing your fleet from this system before we activate our defensive measures. The bridge crew erupted in what could only be described as laughter. Several alien officers pointed at the tactical displays showing the overwhelming numerical advantage they possessed. Admiral Krez gestured toward the screens with obvious amusement. Captain Bradley, perhaps your species lacks basic mathematical comprehension. We have 3,000 ships while your entire fleet consists of fewer than 100 vessels. The outcome of any conflict is already determined. Bradley checked a device on his wrist that appeared to be counting down from 10 minutes. Admiral, I think there might be some confusion about what constitutes our defensive capabilities. The ships you've detected represent our mobile patrol units. They're not our primary defense system. Then where is your primary defense system? Captain? Bradley smiled and gestured toward the main view screen that showed the peaceful-looking solar system around them. You're looking at it, Admiral. Our entire star system has been converted into a single integrated defense network. Every asteroid, every moon, every orbital installation has been designed and positioned to repel exactly this type of invasion. Krez studied the human's expression for signs of deception or madness, but found only calm confidence. Captain, even if your entire system has been militarized, you still lack the numerical superiority necessary to defeat a Dominion fleet of this size. Numbers aren't everything, Admiral. Sometimes technology can overcome quantity. Sometimes preparation beats raw firepower. And sometimes the species that looks primitive from a distance turns out to be more advanced than anyone expected. Bradley's countdown device showed 5 minutes remaining. Admiral, your intelligence reports about humanity are 40 years out of date. A lot can change in 4 decades when a species decides to focus all of its resources on a single objective. Our objective has been preparing for this exact scenario. The human captain walked over to one of the alien tactical displays and studied the fleet positions with obvious understanding of Dominion military formations. You've arranged your ships in a classic intimidation pattern designed to maximize psychological impact on primitive defenders. It's an effective formation against species who might panic when faced with overwhelming odds. And your people won't panic, Captain? Bradley turned back to face Admiral Krez with an expression that sent a chill through the alien commander. Admiral, we stopped being the primitive species from your database files decades ago. What you're about to encounter is the result of 40 years of human engineering focused on a single question. How do you defeat an overwhelming invasion force? The countdown device showed 2 minutes remaining. We found several answers to that question, Admiral. Would you like us to demonstrate them? Admiral Krez was about to respond to Captain Bradley's challenge when every alarm on the bridge began screaming simultaneously. The main tactical display flickered and changed to show something that violated everything the alien commander thought he knew about space warfare. Stars that had been empty moments before now blazed with artificial constructs that dwarfed his largest dreadnoughts. The asteroid belt was unfolding like a mechanical flower, revealing weapon platforms that had been hidden within hollowed-out rocks for decades. Each platform was larger than a Dominion battle station and bristled with devices that the alien sensors couldn't identify. The readings showed energy buildups that exceeded the power output of entire star systems. Captain Bradley stood calmly beside the tactical station, watching Admiral Krez's growing horror with professional interest. The asteroids were the easiest part of the construction project. Plenty of raw materials, and no one expects space rocks to be anything more than they appear. We've been mining and building out there for 25 years. The gas giant's rings began rotating into new configurations, exposing railguns that stretched across millions of kilometers. These weren't conventional magnetic accelerators, but Gravity-based systems that could launch projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The planet's moons opened like hatches to reveal installations that had been built inside artificial shells. The gas giant project was more challenging, Bradley continued conversationally. Maintaining orbital mechanics while constructing weapons. Platforms required some creative engineering, but the gravitational environment let us build systems that wouldn't be stable anywhere else. Admiral Krez stared at the displays in stunned silence as more hidden installations revealed themselves. Throughout the human solar system, the outer planets hosted networks of devices that seemed to manipulate spacetime itself. Even the sun appeared to pulse with artificial energy as massive solar collectors came online to power the growing defensive network. "This is impossible," Krez whispered. "No species could construct installations of this magnitude without detection." "We had 40 years to work on the project, Admiral. Plus, we had the advantage of knowing that someone would eventually come looking for us. That kind of focused preparation can accomplish remarkable things when an entire species commits to a single objective." The tactical officer's voice carried a note of panic that Krez had never heard from a Dominion crew member. "Sir, the energy readings from those installations are beyond our measurement capabilities. Whatever they're preparing to do, it's going to require more power than most stellar phenomena." Bradley checked his countdown device again. 30 seconds, Admiral. "I really do recommend beginning your withdrawal immediately. What you're seeing now is just the defensive network powering up. The actual weapons demonstration tends to be rather dramatic." Krez looked around his bridge at officers who had served with distinction in dozens of campaigns against primitive species. None of them had ever encountered anything remotely resembling the situation they now faced. The humans had somehow constructed a system-wide defense network that operated on principles the Dominion didn't understand. "Captain Bradley, assuming your weapons are as advanced as your construction capabilities, what exactly are you planning to demonstrate?" "Something we call selective disintegration, Admiral. Our gravity manipulation systems can create localized spacetime distortions that cause matter to simply stop existing. We can target individual ships within your fleet and remove them from reality without affecting anything else in the immediate area." The countdown reached 10 seconds. Bradley's expression remained pleasant and conversational despite the magnitude of what he was describing. "The process is completely painless for the crews involved. One moment they exist, the next moment they don't. No suffering, no wreckage, just a clean demonstration of our technological capabilities." 5 seconds, Admiral. Final chance to order. A withdrawal. Krez found himself frozen by the impossibility of the situation. His training had prepared him to face conventional resistance from primitive species, not systematic technological superiority from what should have been a backward civilization. The countdown reached 0. The first demonstration targeted a single destroyer on the fleet's outer perimeter. The ship didn't explode or burn or show any visible signs of damage. It simply ceased to exist as if it had never been built. The space where it had been floating showed nothing but empty vacuum and distant stars. "As you can see, the process is very clean," Bradley explained. "No debris field, no radiation signature, no evidence that anything was ever there. We find this approach minimizes cleanup requirements after the demonstration concludes." A second ship vanished from the fleet's formation, then a third. The targeted vessels weren't being destroyed by weapons that the Dominion sensors could detect. They were simply being edited out of existence by technology that operated beyond alien understanding. Admiral Krez watched his tactical display as more ships began disappearing at regular intervals. The human defensive systems were methodically removing Dominion vessels from reality while leaving the rest of the fleet completely untouched. The precision required for such selective targeting was beyond anything in galactic civilization. "Captain, how many ships are you planning to demonstrate on?" Bradley consulted his device again. "The current plan calls for removing roughly 10% of your fleet from existence. That should provide sufficient evidence of our capabilities without creating unnecessary casualties." "We're not interested in genocide, Admiral. We just want to make sure you understand the situation clearly. Another group of ships vanished simultaneously, removed from reality with surgical precision that left their neighboring vessels completely unaffected. The Dominion fleet's carefully planned formation began to dissolve as commanders tried to maneuver away from whatever was causing their comrades to disappear. Of course, if you prefer a more conventional demonstration, we also have kinetic weapons that operate at relativistic speeds and plasma systems that can generate temperatures equivalent to stellar cores. But we thought the disintegration approach would be less messy for everyone involved. Admiral Krez realized that his 3,000-ship fleet was completely helpless against weapons that could selectively target individual vessels and remove them from existence. The humans possessed technology that made the Dominion look primitive by comparison. Captain Bradley, I believe we understand your capabilities now. What are your terms for ending this demonstration? The demonstration ended as abruptly as it had begun when Captain Bradley spoke a single word into his communication device. Throughout the human solar system, weapons that could reshape reality itself powered down and returned to standby mode. The surviving ships of Admiral Krez's fleet found themselves floating in space, surrounded by installations that had been invisible just hours before. 300 Dominion vessels had simply vanished during the demonstration, removed from existence, with surgical precision that left no trace of their former presence. The remaining ships showed various levels of damage from gravitational stresses and energy discharges that their shields had never been designed to handle. Many were barely spaceworthy and would require extensive repairs before they could attempt the journey back to Dominion space. Admiral Krez sat in his command chair staring at tactical displays that showed the true scope of humanity's defensive preparations. Every asteroid, moon, and planetary body in the system housed installations that operated on principles beyond Dominion understanding. The humans had spent 40 years converting their entire star system into a fortress designed specifically to repel invasion. Captain Bradley remained on the bridge, apparently unconcerned about being surrounded by aliens who had every reason to hate him. His relaxed demeanor suggested that he considered the situation completely under control, despite being the only human aboard a ship filled with enemy personnel. Admiral, I think it's time we discussed what happens next, Bradley said. Your fleet is in no condition to continue aggressive operations. Most of your ships need immediate repairs just to remain spaceworthy. Your crew morale has been severely damaged by witnessing technology they can't explain or counter. Krez nodded slowly. The human was correct on all points. His fleet had been effectively neutralized without the humans even demonstrating their full capabilities. The weapon systems they had revealed during the brief engagement represented technological advancement that the Dominion wouldn't achieve for centuries. What are your demands, Captain? We don't make demands, Admiral. We prefer to offer choices. You can return to Dominion space with a message for your leaders about what you encountered here. Or you can remain in this system as prisoners while we send our own representatives to open diplomatic relations with your government. Bradley walked over to one of the bridge's viewing ports and gazed out at the wreckage of what had been the Dominion's most powerful invasion fleet. Personally, I recommend the first option. Your leaders need to understand that humanity is no longer the primitive species described in their outdated files. The alien admiral considered his options carefully. Returning to Dominion space with news of such a devastating defeat would likely result in court-martial and execution, but remaining as a prisoner of a technologically superior species offered no better prospects for survival. If I return with your message, what guarantee do I have that my government will believe such an impossible story? Captain Bradley smiled and gestured toward the tactical displays showing the human defensive installations. Admiral, we're going to provide you with complete sensor recordings of everything that happened here. Your government's technical experts will be able to verify that the data hasn't been fabricated or altered. He paused and his expression became more serious. We're also going to give you something else. A complete technical analysis of every Dominion ship and weapon system that participated in this engagement. Your leaders will discover that we know more about their military capabilities than they do themselves. Bradley activated a portable device that projected a holographic display showing detailed schematics of Dominion technology. The images revealed design flaws and vulnerabilities that even the original engineers had never identified. The level of analysis suggested that humans had been studying alien technology for decades. How did you acquire this information? We've been monitoring Dominion activities throughout this region of the galaxy for the past 30 years. Your expansion pattern was predictable enough that we knew you would eventually reach our system. We used that time to study your technology and develop appropriate countermeasures. The holographic display changed to show comparative analyses between human and Dominion systems. In every category, human technology demonstrated overwhelming superiority. Their materials science was centuries ahead of galactic standards. Their energy systems operated at efficiency levels that approached theoretical maximums. Their artificial intelligence capabilities exceeded anything in known space. Admiral, your species has spent thousands of years conquering primitive civilizations and absorbing their resources. You've become very good at overwhelming less advanced opponents with superior numbers and firepower. But you've never faced a species that deliberately prepared for your arrival. Bradley deactivated the holographic display and returned his attention to Admiral Krez. Humanity spent 40 years asking a single question: how do you defeat an invasion? Force that outnumbers you by thousands to one? We found several answers to that question, and today you experience just one of them. The alien commander studied the human captain with growing understanding. You're saying that this entire engagement was planned in advance, that you knew exactly what tactics we would use and how we would respond to resistance. Admiral, we know more about Dominion military doctrine than most of your own officers. We've studied every campaign you fought for the past century. Your tactical patterns are completely predictable once you understand the underlying strategic principles. Captain. Bradley walked back to the center of the bridge and addressed Admiral Krez directly. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to repair your ships enough to make them space-worthy for the journey home. We're going to provide you with complete documentation of this encounter along with our technical analysis of your military capabilities. And we're going to send a message with you for the Dominion High Command. He handed Krez a small data crystal that contained information the alien admiral couldn't even begin to comprehend. The message is simple. Humanity has moved beyond the primitive stage of development described in your files. We now possess technology that makes us effectively immune to conventional invasion. Any future attempts to conquer or occupy our system will result in consequences that make today's demonstration look restrained. Admiral Krez accepted the crystal with hands that trembled slightly. And if my government chooses to ignore this warning? Captain Bradley's expression became cold in a way that reminded the alien admiral that humans were descended from predators. Then they'll discover what happens when humanity stops being diplomatic. Today's demonstration removed 300 ships from existence using our most gentle and precise weapon systems. We have other options that are considerably less discriminating. The bridge fell silent as the implications of that statement sank in. The humans possessed technology capable of selective matter disintegration, gravitational manipulation, and energy generation beyond galactic standards. If they chose to abandon restraint and use their full capabilities, the results would be catastrophic for any species that opposed them. Admiral, you came here expecting to conquer primitives who had barely discovered fire. Instead, you encountered a civilization that has spent decades preparing specifically for this type of invasion. Your defeat today will echo throughout the galaxy and change the balance of power among spacefaring species. As Admiral Krez prepared to carry humanity's message back to Dominion space, he realized that the galaxy would never again underestimate the quiet species from the third planet. Of an unremarkable yellow star,